Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Horns Down podcast with your host Chris Griffin and Seth Oliveira. Seth, how you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing so good right now. I mean, it's hot out there, but I'm feeling the fever of college football. It's not that far away.
Okay, well, Seth, I said it earlier this week. I tweeted that out and I said, it's Texas week, or is it too early to say that? Or I mean, we're doing a preview show today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest, Stephen Nagati. Am I saying that right?
Stephen Ngati, but close
Yeah.
enough. Close
Okay,
enough, Chris.
okay, okay,
Very,
okay.
very close. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well. Let me go ahead and introduce you. This is about as nice as I could possibly be to a Texas fan. So, you got to check out his YouTube page, Fanatic Perspective. Not only does he cover everything that there is Texas, he also covers the NBA. I saw some UFC stuff on there. I saw you playing. I guess you were doing like some of the old NCAA games, and so there's a lot of content on his page. So you guys definitely have to check him out. And yeah, go ahead and just tell the good folks about yourself, and let them know who you are, and let them know that you're credible. You're a credible Texas fan.
Absolutely. Chris and Seth, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate you brothers dearly. Despite the name of the podcast, you know, we, our channel, we always say horns always up. So we can get into that a little bit later. But in terms of our YouTube channel, it's been a blessing to have the platform we've had grow, and the community has been awesome. Not just Texas fans, college football community. We do have a ton of Oklahoma Sooners fans that follow us. Just the last years I've been on YouTube and prepping for games and covering college football and everything, I think a lot of people have just appreciated my honest, straightforward feedback in terms of the game insights. So we're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. So those of you out there who are not familiar with YouTube, not familiar with Fanatic Perspective, please, please, please go check us out. And if you like what you see, subscribe. We are 200 people away from 10,000 recording. So, Chris, Seth, appreciate you guys.
Seth,
Hey, it's an honor to have you here as well, man. Because yeah, we definitely like to chop it up with, and then if we can have a guest, it just makes it that much more fun. So yeah, thank you so much.
Seth, I gotta throw a quick jab real quick. I can't go an episode without mentioning my uncle I always talk about. So I talked to
Uncle,
him. I said, hey, I said this guy is gonna be on our podcast this week, and he said, oh, that guy, yeah, he cool. Yeah, I always go to his page whenever Texas loses. So I just like to see what he has to say after that.
dang.
So I was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go at him now. But
Yes,
now we
sir.
got the opening chats out of the way. Let's get into it, fellas. Let's get into it. Okay, so Stephen, the first question, the question everybody is wanting to know: how will Steve Sarkisian's first season at Texas compare to Tom Herman's?
So, Tom Herman, year one, 2017. I kind of take a step back and start with what are they when comparing the two, right? So,
Right,
Tom
right.
Herman obviously was inheriting the five Charlie Strong team and not really an established quarterback situation. I know Shane Buechele at that time had a promising freshman year, tapered off, and we all know what happened at Kansas. I'm sure you guys will troll on that. But there's some similarities there because you're looking at a quarterback controversy that was going on then, or quarterback competition, I should say, which at the time was Shane Buechele versus Allen, right? And we ended up going 7-6, played a lot of close games. You start off bat and you lose early, right? And that kind of became one of the themes throughout the Tom Herman era and tenure. So when I go back and look at like the result, didn't we have more success up front? One of the that really stands out to me right off the bat is the staff, right? So Tom Herman brought over a lot of coaches from that Houston staff, but most of them had G5 experience. And I made this joke before on other people's channels about we brought over a bunch of G5 coaches. And I really felt like what Steve Sarkisian has done, poaching coaches from that Alabama national championship winning staff, the coaches that we have coming on board, like a Bo Davis, who was previously with Texas, has been in Alabama, had NFL experience. Pete Kwiatkowski coming from Washington, this guy's like crazy. Look at all the coaches that Sarkisian has compiled in conjunction with the team that is left over from Tom Herman. Because whether however you, we were 3 last year, we were still a top 20 team. We weren't bad. It's not like where Tom Herman's picking up this 5-7 team, right? So even though that you have the similarities with the quarterback, Carter and Casey Thompson, I do feel as though Steve Sarkisian has more to work with, and the expectations reasonably higher for Steve. But the last thing I'll say before I kind of pitch it back over, they can't do the whole playing up and down to their competition week to week anymore. They've got to live up to the whole all gas no brakes mantra that I'm sure all you guys have been hearing on social media, right? Like they got to play up to that. That like one of the key differences I'm looking for right off the bat in year one.
Seth, do you want to go first, or should I? I mean, Seth,
I'll go. So, I mean, that's definitely. I like that you broke it down and gave the kind of context there, Stephen, about like kind of what each Tom Herman and Steve Sarkisian, what they both inherited coming into the job. And I mean, yeah, it definitely is a lot different. Like I'd say the Texas program for sure. I mean, everyone would say that they're in a much better place now than they were after 2016. And so I think because of that alone is going to help Sarkisian, at least in his first season, maybe have a little bit more success than Tom Herman did. I still, as far as like, I don't really want to get too far into the schedule and prediction stuff yet. We may talk about that later on, but yeah, I do see them having some more success, but I don't know, since I don't have as close of a pulse on like the kind of the fan base and the expectations of what fans might be expecting and would be okay with, the Texas fans at least, what they would be okay with
Let me
for this first season.
Let me ask you this, from your perspective as an OU fan, because I interact with so many of you guys who are like, we're rivals, right? And
right.
we hate each other on the field, but there's a mutual respect between the fan bases as rivals. So, dang, like Texas for us, or for the rivalry to be where it was like when I was growing up, and y'all team in the country, we're the number 3 team in the country, and we're going at it in the Red River rivalry, right?
Yeah.
As an OU fan, and you too, Chris, what do you define as successful for Texas? Like, what to you is like, oh yeah, that's Texas is back to being Texas again.
Let me take this, Seth. Let me take this.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so first off, 7-3 is definitely not going to be a successful year. A lot of people have you guys going 7-5, 8-4 this year. What I would say a successful Big 12 season for you guys. Let's pump the brakes on the national championship hoorah that's sort of been going on a little bit quietly but surely. I think a successful Big 12 season means that you guys make it, even if you guys lose the Red River Shootout, or if you guys were to win that game and then drop a game to Iowa State or someone else in the Big 12. I think a successful season for you guys is making the Big 12 championship game and winning that. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. I mean, if you listen to RJ Young, if you listen to a lot of people out there, Texas has the most talented roster in the Big 12. You guys are made of nothing. You guys have 4 and 5 stars out the wazoo. It's time to put up or shut up. I feel like to the point of this question, though, as far as Steve Sarkisian's first year compared to Tom Herman's, I think that it's going to be more successful than Tom Herman's first season. I think Tom Herman did a lot of good things, but I think you're going to see a more fluid passing game because Tom Herman was basically running a what was that, like the power spread? And
power spread.
Yeah.
A pro style spread however you want to
Yeah,
classify it. Yeah.
and I'm just gonna be honest with you. I just never think that. I don't think that. I think that he tapped a lot of, I guess, Ellinger's potential, but I don't think that he ever just fully said, "Okay, let's sit down and let's figure out what really suits you." I think somebody like Sarkeesian or obviously Lincoln Riley. I think some of those offensive minds could have probably broke through with Ellinger and had and propelled him to a better season. But I'm eager to see what Sarkeesian is going to do with either Hudson Carr or Casey Thompson, who I think is going to be starting. I want to see him let it rip, and I don't think you saw a lot of action because, to be honest with you, I'm gonna be quite frank with you. The reason why I say Lincoln Riley probably could have got more out of Sam Ellinger than Tom Herman did is because we sat there and we had Jalen Hurts out there running a one-man show, and we saw
Mm-hmm.
what he could do if he had the not only the weapons around him, but two, the confidence of a coach to say, "Hey, look, we got to win this game by any means necessary, but you got to stop turning over the ball, obviously." But um, I just feel like a successful year for Texas is not just finishing second in the Big 12. You got to win it. You got to win it.
So, Chris,
Well, just like one last point, and
sure.
here is an opinion that's probably not going to be popular with a lot of people, and a lot of people listening. This is probably going to say, "Chris, you're bad. You're crazy." The only way that the Big 12 will become respectable again around the nation is if if not only OU but Texas regain dominance of the Big 12. It has
I
to.
agree with that.
They have both
Well,
teams have to. You have to go into each offseason saying the road just doesn't go to Norman. It has to go through Austin as well. Like that has to be something.
I completely agree with that. But I think honestly, I agree with everything you said. I mean, and even with your point about Jalen Hurts, I think it's very, very valid in comparison to how Sam Ellinger was used at the University of Texas. I mean, you can argue that he was offense skill set, right? Like there's a go back and diagnose with Sam. And I talk about this, I'm a big Marvel guy, but bring
Yeah,
some
same
time.
here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching Loki right now, they're big on the timelines right now. And
Yeah.
don't think this was the best timeline of his career. I think
No.
that's a lot to do with Herman. Some of it to do with injuries and some of it to do with Sam himself, but I don't think that was the best version of what we could have seen from Sam Ellinger. And I think a great example of that is how Jalen Hurts was utilized. Now, granted, they're not the same type of player, but they had some of the same challenges throwing the football or reading. But Lincoln Riley is a much better coach, had a better system, and made him comfortable. And once you have a guy that's a leader like that, that's comfortable, you saw how productive the Oklahoma offense was. The one thing I will challenge or push is, or maybe I just want to clarify to Chris's point. Are you saying that Steve Sarkisian's if they don't win the Big 12, his first season is a failure? Like if he goes to the Big 12 championship game in year one and they lose, or is that a automatic failure for Steve Sarkisian? Or are you just saying in order for Texas to be all the way back, they have to win the Big 12? That's once they win the Big 12, that's when you'll know that they're back. I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm saying both. I'm saying both. Steve
Oh, okay.
Sarkisian is coming off of a national championship. He just coached the Heisman Trophy winner. He's coming off. He has all this hype. He has the hype train behind him. Also, Texas. I think Bob Stoops. Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Bob Stoops came on a few weeks ago, or like a month or so ago, and he said there's no rebuilding that needs to happen in Texas. They already have the weapons. Let's go. I feel like
Yeah,
Texas.
he did say that on the herd with the
Yeah,
Colin Cowherd.
I saw that as well.
I feel like Texas is already there. I feel like Texas is here. It's just they needed a coach. They haven't had a coach in the last umpteen years. I think Texas is ready to kind of make that push and try to regain dominance of the Big 12. So I don't I don't really want to see building blocks set up for next year and then the years after that. I want to see instant success. I mean, we're used up there, as your neighbors up north, I guess.
What I'll add with that is, well, first of all, I personally don't. I think if Texas were to get to the Big 12 championship game but lose it, I think that still would be a success just in this particular year, with it being Sarkisian's first year. Only thing would have made me change that to like they need to win it for it to be a success would have been if like Sam Ellinger had returned, or they had like a long established quarterback coming back, because I just think it's just too. I think it's just too much to ask for any team to win the conference with a unproven or like a quarterback who hasn't been like an official starter in their past. And the exception being like, some of the guys that OU's put through recently, like Kyler getting it in his first years, Jalen, Spencer Rattler, but like their program and the team around them was more than established already, and that's what kind of helped them. But otherwise, I just think that they, with the quarterback being the position being kind of up in the air still, and just not coming from one of the most experienced quarterbacks to play the game to now you're going to either Casey Thompson or Hudson Card, is it's just, that's a big step down in experience. It's just that for me, I don't want to use the term like give them a pass, but in that sense, like if they can just get to the Big 12 championship, that's I think that'd be a roaring success, honestly, to get to the Big 12 championship.
Neighbors up north. Respectfully, I gotta push back on you guys, not for what Seth just said, because I don't fully disagree with you, but going back to the Bob Stoops comment about the talent thing, he's basing that on recruiting in terms of like the talent that they've accumulated. However, and I believe Chris was the one that said this earlier, where I really have to push back. To say that Texas is the most talented team in the Big 12 right now, hands down, is false. That's OU. OU, like OU is going to be ranked in the top 3, right? Like, and I can't argue with you if you're going to say I have OU ranked going forward. This is, I mean, and I know you guys are going to have an Oklahoma preview, but like, Oklahoma is not only expected to make a run for a national championship with what they've built up. To say that Texas is more talent, I mean, Texas may have more, composite rankings, but we know the talent development issues that have been here. That talent developed.
I agree with that.
Developed.
I agree with that, and I feel like Seth has more of the realistic perspective. I'm a spoiled OU fan, so having
you guys are super spoiled.
Jalen and Baker, I mean, come on, man. I mean, seriously. But no, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I think OU year in, year out is the most talented team. I think that the only team that can beat OU, honestly, is themselves. And it's proven whenever they play. You see those. Everybody sees those games and they see those lapses, except for, obviously, the college football playoff games. So we'll table that discussion. But, no, I agree with that. I just feel like I just want Texas to be so good. I want Texas to be good again, because it doesn't give me any joy beating Texas like last year, that quadruple overtime game. I mean, hey, okay, it was two.
You labeled that as a bum fight going in.
Yeah, it was a bum fight. I wanted to throw a spoon out there on the field and tell them, go for the jugular, please, because it didn't really give me any thrills, But I want to see Texas and OU be good again, because I want to see some teams in the Big 12 go back to their natural place, which is being bottom feeders. OSU, Iowa State, TCU. I mean, my God, the list goes on. I'm just so tired of watching all of this. It's just craziness. It's pandemonium in the Big 12, and I just want to see those two teams be elite together. So that's just me. That's just me.
Well, hey, we were talking about talent earlier and like who's got the most talent. Well, kind of transition to the next thing. Maybe the most talented guy on the Texas roster right now Bijan Robinson. I'm I'm really impressed with what he showed last season, especially those last like 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, it was like he just kept going up and up, and if he just played any more games, if there was more games after the Colorado game, he would have just kept going up, in my opinion. But so, what do you expect now that he's going to be a year older, but and, in a new system, but maybe a more friendly system? Uh, Steven, I'd like to know what kind of expectations you have for him, like what kind of season he could have, like, and you can give numbers and like stat predictions if you want, or you can just kind of put it
Sure,
into words.
sure. Well, I mean, even last year, I mean, he has over almost 9 yards a carry, or it was maybe at 9 yards a carry last season, right? And he didn't even have 100 carries. I think he had like 85 carries in a year and had over 700 yards rushing. And that was we had missed 3 games, right? Like South Florida, Kansas, and LSU. So if we played a full season, I don't know. He's probably well over 1,000 yards his freshman year.
Yeah.
Coming into in this offense under Steve Sarkisian, you look at how Najee Harris was showcased last season. You look at guys like Chris Falk and just some of the, at Washington and some of the USC backs. I don't know if Steve Sarkisian's even worked with a guy, some of the abilities of Bijan Robinson. And that's saying a lot. Was a first round and a freak, right? You saw him hurdling everybody in college.
Like every game.
Like even in the playoffs. Like Najee's ridiculous, right? But Bijan has something, it's just something when you watch it. And I've never seen a guy get at least because we've been deprived of just gifted people like that for whatever reason. But that even OU fans or Iowa State fans, people from all over just do 5 special. 5 y'all got over there is different. And I think with the way he's going to be showcased, I think it that he'll have is probably going to be more so to what we saw from Najee Harris last year in terms of like you're loading him up with carries in the big games, but he's also going to have a good balanced breakfast of passing opportunities because Najee caught 43 balls last year. Now that includes playoff games and stuff, but he was heavily involved in the passing game. And him all over the field generating matchup opportunities. That's something that the previous staff just struggled with. They were slow to get Bijan ramped even when he was ready, he did something earlier in the year against Texas Tech where he almost broke.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't for those who don't remember. So it took him some time to just kind of get up to speed, and he wasn't here last spring either, right? So but once he was ready to go, that was something that Tom Herman's group always struggled with, was just utilizing their running backs. They liked bringing the quarterback to death. So reallocating a lot of those touches and showcasing the backs again, I expect Bijan Robinson to have, and this is going to be dependent upon the amount of carries he gets. I think he's going to have a high yard per carry average, similar to like what we saw with Kennedy Brooks a few years ago, and 1,500 yards, but he also has pass game touches. And I'm curious to see what the touchdowns look like because we do have Roschon Johnson in there as well, who will get a lot of goal line work. But overall, Bijan Robinson, I mean, he's going to be on the last year already, but now getting him more opportunity. Now he's had a full offseason in the weight room.
Yeah.
Offseason to look at tape. One of the smartest things they did is keeping Stan Drayton on the staff and keeping that relationship there. Scott, that brother, man. I cannot wait, but I think he's going to be one of the best players in the Big 12. We are a running back conference right now. When you look at, you're there, with Kennedy and Eric Gray and all those guys and Breece Hall and Deuce Vaughn. I mean, we're loaded in this conference.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, don't say Deuce Vaughn on this pod.
Please. Come on, man. K-State is still
he daring ball.
I can't. I want blood. I told Seth in the gym the other day. I said, like on Game of Thrones, I want that head delivered on a steak to me. I can't stand K-State. But what I was going to say about Bijan is just, I would say I sat down and watched the West Virginia game, and still to this day, I don't know how that was even a close game because West Virginia was. I mean, they were better than average. I mean, they weren't as advertised. They just were disciplined. I would say that, but I saw some moves out there that made me go, whoa, wow, oh wow, he's 5 is special. Bijan is special.
Yeah. I still think he stayed in bounds on that one play. I still think he stayed in bounds.
That was supposed to be 85. I was at and I was tweeting from our seats where Tran and I were, and I'm like, how where exactly did he step out of bounds on that run?
Yeah.
Please, center of gravity is that real his strength of running through arm tackles and whatnot. I mean, there's so much you can highlight 5, but I agree, it's special.
I guess my question is, can Bijan play every position? Because I don't really I don't know. I mean, it's not too much over there. I was gonna ask. This could be a side note from that. We all know that Bijan is gonna be special this year. The question I have for Steve and Seth is simply this: can we get some production out of Tariq Black and Devontae Smith? Oh, excuse me. Oh, Tariq Black's gone?
Yeah, Tariq's back. He's gone. He wasn't drafted, but I think he's on the.
I could have sworn that he was coming back. But hey, okay. But we'll take him out.
No worries. Hey, we're struggling with receiver right now, so keep throwing out names. I'll tell you.
Can we get some production out of Devontae Smith 2.0? Oh, excuse me, I meant Joshua Moore. I mean, like, what's up with that? Because all I hear is, Sarkis is going to bring that same passing concept and all those plays over there. Joshua Moore is going to go crazy because he's the fastest receiver on the field. And I'm just like, did anybody watch last year? He did not live up to any expectations that he had coming out of any of those camps.
So, to be fair to Joshua Moore, he did have 9 touchdowns on, I think, only 30 receptions. Now, he was wildly inconsistent, okay? And he had, he would go 3 and 4 quarters without catches. And this is a guy who came, gangbusters, right? But wide receiver is one of the big question marks on this team. And I think that goes in conjunction with who the quarterback's going to be. Those two things, and that when you look at the receiver position and the quarterback thing, doesn't that impact what Bijan's going to be able to do in terms of really maximizing 5?
Yeah.
If those guys are just good, that gives 5 a ton of air cover to do its thing. But if they're up and down and we have Joshua Moore going another 3 quarters and it's like the same passing game and we can't complete a pass over 50 yards ever, put everybody in the box. Stop 5. It's not deep, right? Like, that's how football works. So from a, who's going to show up perspective, well, I can tell you, right, Jake Smith just left, right? Like, as of recording.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, kids can always come back out, but he's probably gone. So you're looking at Joshua Moore, who had 9 touchdowns last year in a 10-game season, but was really, really inconsistent, and he doesn't even weigh 170 pounds. You have Troy O'Meary. If you go on Texas message boards, he's the guy that everybody thinks is, potentially the next Roy Williams and just going to be the next freak here. The burnt orange version of Roy Williams, by the way. For clarification purposes, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Next week he was 1, but he hasn't played a college game and he's on torn ACL. And then you're looking at Jordan Whittington, who we all remember recruit, but he's been crazy injured his entire time at Texas, and now he's going to be asked to carry a heavier load with Jake Smith, and then the rest are really unproven, right? Like, Kelvonte Dixon caught a bomb in the bowl game, but we don't know if he can, carry the load at receiver. Xavier Worthy, who essentially stole from Michigan at the last minute. I'm excited. The brother looks like Sean Jackson, but we've struggled to get speed guys like that the ball at Texas.
You guys have had Texas has had guys, but they haven't had the guy in a while. So you've had I would say you've always had a solid group of guys, because if there's one position at Texas that has been drafted, it's been the wide receiver position. And I'm still waiting for that guy, that standout guy that, hey, let's get him the ball. And Texas hasn't had that wide receiver in a while. Maybe it's due to the sometime inconsistencies that happen with Ellinger, and I don't know. It's a lot to really throw at somebody, but I mean, a wide receiver, you guys, I don't know. That's the one thing that I've been thinking about.
I think it's been a development problem, in my opinion, because I will say a development problem in how to showcase guys. For example, I knew from day one Devin Duvernay was already good, but it took us to figure out how to get him right. And then once they were like, oh yeah, he should probably be the guy we showed. Texas was third in the country in receptions. 3 years to figure out how to get Devin Duvernay the football, and he's probably going to be if he sticks at Baylor with Art Briles, and God, right. We all know how that went down. Devin Duvernay probably ends up being Corey Coleman 2.0.
Honestly, though,
like that's the problem at Texas. So like Joshua Moore, for example, like I looked at him when we started really what type of player he could be. I'm like, wow, this guy looks like like in terms of what he could do. But D.D. Westbrook was showcased and like didn't have issues delivering the ball. I mean, getting him easy touches, and eventually him getting his confidence up, and he became a Biletnikoff guy. So it's a development problem as much as anything right now.
And if we're just being totally honest, Seth, if we're being totally honest as OU fans, we know that pain, because defensively we have had a bunch of NFL guys that have went and are still in the league that we feel like were underdeveloped at OU, because Mike Stoops and I'll even say Bob Stoops, Bob and Mike, they just fell off the recruiting train hard. I mean, occasionally you would get a 5-star, but he wouldn't really pan out to be, everything that you thought he would be. I mean,
Buki.
Yeah, Buki. You can say A.D. Miller. I mean, you had a bunch of like just NFL guys coming out of high school that you thought were, oh my gosh, these guys are going to be just superstars. And I mean, you're sitting there, telling somebody like, I mean, like, how do you really convince a linebacker to say, hey, I want to come play for Tim Kish, at this juncture in his career? I mean, I'm just being honest with you. Yeah. I mean, I understand those development roles, because that's what I was thinking as well. Because if you go back, not last year, but I mean this past season, but if you go back to the Jalen year, we all know OU should have won that game probably by at least 3 or 4 touchdowns. Granted, they hit turnovers and things like that. But the thing that got me was, look, I love Alex Rich as most as anybody, but come on, man. I was scared. I was like, Duvernay and Colin Johnson, they're gonna be running crazy. They're not even gonna do crazy routes. They're just gonna run right past Piedmont and Trey Brown. I was sitting there. I was scared for my life. I was like, I can't do this again. I just can't, because I don't trust it. But I mean, Piedmont and Trey Brown and the rest of the boys, they kept those guys in check, and that was one of the crazier things to me about that game, because it was like you guys have a better your receivers are better than our corners. Let's just be honest with that. Honest about that. But in that game, it just didn't show, and I was shocked.
Well, can I present the other side of the coin there too? As a Texas fan, you're saying you're sitting there scared of Alex, with the Alex Grinch situation in that game, and your guys. I'm coming in scared of the Tim Beck, Tom Herman offense, right? So, I mean, you're worried about your boys. I was worried about my guys, right? And what ended up happening in that game, didn't block a soul. right?
Yeah, it
You
was like
sacked
what,
the
9
quarterback
sacks?
15 times. So
Yeah. And that leads to a point with the whole Bijan. The question is, do you guys have an offensive line that can help him sustain any type of momentum towards a Heisman Trophy, the Don't Walker Award, or just any type of conference award this year? Because I'm just gonna say I don't know if your offensive line can hold up that long.
So that's a great question, right? Because I would actually say of the more underrated units on the team, I say it's offensive line, especially in the run blocking department.
Okay.
Texas figured something out at the end that I do carry over to Steve Sarkisian. As much crap as Herb Hand got, deservedly so, they did figure out, their whole outside zone scheme and realizing that they have athletic offensive linemen that can get out in space. And this is post Sam Cosmi, okay? Guys like Andre Carrick's in there. Jake Majors took over at center, like young guys, and they realized they could reach block. They could get out there in space and create a crease for Bijan. So I think they really I saw that kind of carry over. I know you don't ever take away anything from spring game, but regardless of who was in there running the football, they were blocking in the run game. The question is, can Texas hold up in combination with Steve's make things easier for pass pro? But when we have to drop back pass on third and 10 or third and before, when we'd go empty against especially you guys, and Neville Gallimore would just tear us up and get in the backfield like that, or it can't happen anymore, right? So that's going to be one of the I will say this: Kyle Flood, coming from Alabama, highly regarded offensive line coach in mind in the sport. He didn't take a transfer from the portal for the offensive line. I feel like they really felt a lot more comfortable with the line than a lot of people think, and I think that area of the team will surprise people.
That gives me comfort. Seth, I noticed you had a topic on here, and we could just segue right into that one, and we'll get back to the quarterback controversy or competition, whatever you want to call it. But Seth, I would ask you, what do you think is going to be the strength of this Texas team, and do you have an area of concern?
Wow. Well, we actually touched a little bit on the area I thought might be the most concerning, which is the wide receiver position, the unit, I guess. Just because of the losses, really, losing Brendan Eagles, Tariq Black, I guess Jake Smith now potentially, as long as he doesn't come back through the portal. But so that one right there is what I'm most concerned with for Texas. Strength wise, I think I'm going to go a little bit outside the box, and this is also going to touch on another topic that I know a lot of people really going to have their eyes on. A potential strength for me, honestly, the quarterback position, and not necessarily because I feel like one or both of the quarterbacks in question are going to be stars, like maybe like first team Big 12 kind of guys. But I just think both guys are solid enough that if when called upon, they're not going to, tank the team. Like I think both guys can lead Texas, do what needs to be done under Steve Sarkisian to get, to produce offense, not go through those quarters where they, go like a couple 3 and outs or, 5 and out kind of deals where like, I especially Casey Thompson. I think Casey he showed me a little bit in the against Colorado. I mean, I feel like you got to take that a little bit with a grain of salt because I don't really know how good Colorado honestly was, but I think he showed enough where if he's got the complete keys to the offense, I think he can make some plays and lead Texas to some wins, maybe wins that not everybody's going to predict them actually taking.
I mean, you kind of look at Casey Thompson, and you just say, he still looks a bit raw, but he looks the part. And you could say the same thing about Hudson Card. I just feel like I don't know. I have no idea what to expect out of those two. I just feel like either Casey Thompson is going to go out there and be his own man and have a season that's compares to Ellinger, or he's gonna be another Tyrone Swoops.
Oh gosh, no.
That if that happens, bruh. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, no, I'm just yeah. If either quarterback is producing like Tyrone Swoops, I think it's you're looking at a Charlie Strong era level season, and I don't know if that's gonna make anybody in Austin happy.
Can I say something to Seth's point? Because I love the fact that you kind of went against the grain and identified the quarterbacks as a strength, because I agree with you. And one of the things I said after the spring, practices wrapped up was position groups on the team, even though they're unproven, I actually think my quarterbacks are two of my better football players on my team. If I'm just stack ranking everybody on the team, right? Regardless of, I do think Casey Thompson and Hudson Card are two of the better players on my football. So where unfortunately in football, you can only play one guy at a time. But from a standpoint of, you're talking about Casey Thompson looking the part. Colorado, in my opinion, was better from what I saw. But I thought, if you want to say they're terrible, I'm probably inclined to agree with you. They were bad to me. But what I will say is him taking over when he did at halftime, where we're struggling again and playing competition and it's only a 7-point game, he came in there and was aggressive and he acted like he was the man. And that moxie, or whatever you want to call it, has carried over, in my opinion, to the offseason and how he's carried himself with his teammates. Now, he's not the greatest practice player, but one of the things that I think I think he has that gamer in him. I love his athleticism. I love the fact that he does take shots down the field. He's a little bit more accurate with the deep ball than even Sam Ellinger was. But both of the thing that Hudson Card possesses and Casey Thompson, a natural arm talent that meshes well with what Steve Sarkisian is looking for. Because at the end of the day, we started this off with the comparison between Steve Sarkisian and Tom Herman. Both of them were quarterback guys, and we forget. But the thing is, Tom Herman offloaded that to Tim Beck.
Yeah.
And was trying to be Mr. CEO, right? And that was one of the differences I've always identified on my channel between Tom Herman and Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley always said, or at least from, guys can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but quarterbacks are on me. And Lincoln Riley has put his stamp on that, and that's why you guys have had the success you've had. What we're hoping for, Sarkisian is going to do that with our guys and come in and say, look, I want everybody to coach, but when it comes to these quarterbacks and this offense, it's fine. Period. And that's what we didn't see from Tom Herman, and I think that's going to be one of the differences with these quarterbacks that you see, regardless of who's the starter.
Just going off of this topic, because we really just combined those two. I would say for me, the area that I'm the most concerned about, because I just really don't know. You guys are going to be okay offensively. I feel like this is going to be a good. You guys have a few games to kind of feel things out starting the season with. Let me go to the schedule. You guys,
Louisiana. Hey, Louisiana's not a fill-out game.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Arkansas and then Rice will be, and Texas Tech. Those will be good games to kind of see where we at, just so you guys can make those second half adjustments going into TCU and Oklahoma. But I want to talk about the DB unit. I think that you guys went out there and got a hell of a defensive coordinator. But just in that defensive background, I'm just not – it's a question mark right now, kind of. Maybe you could throw some names out there that you think. I will say this. The only thing that I am going to miss about the Tom Herman era is seeing Todd Orlando standing on the sideline with the most confused look on his face when things are not going right. I am going to miss that, especially at the –
oh my gosh! After Todd Orlando sent a blitz from falls on 3rd and 4, and nobody got home.
Man,
So,
I still think about that. I still think about that LSU game.
oh,
And
Seth,
that
you had to bring it up.
I mean, Joe Burrow, he did the thing to both our teams. So I guess that's a
That's a good point.
we can share that agony, but
well, we didn't. I mean, 75 points, but I mean, you're right.
Hey.
I gotta get my shots in, Chris. I don't have that many.
Let's not talk, okay? Oh wow. Mister, we went 7-3 last year. We still finished in the top 20. Who the hell cares?
I know. I'm just saying. Hey, you want to quote me out of context? You go right ahead.
You sound like an OSU fan right now. When OU lost in 2 games to back to back. Look. Let me tell you something. I didn't watch any of the. Seth? Who did they play after that? They played Texas. Oh no, they played TCU and then they played Texas. I don't know.
It was Texas, I think.
Oh my God. It was, you know what? It took me a while to even watch that game. I was flipping through channels. I was trying to avoid it the entire time. And when I finally flipped over, I was like, what is this? What is going on out here? But back to the point though. What do we have in the DB room? That's the question that I have for you.
So I do agree with so Chris, to your question of concern, I actually share that concern with you. Just from a standpoint of starting with the coaches, right? Because we bring over Terry Joseph, who's going to be responsible for like defensive passing game / corners, whatever that. But he's responsible for the corners. And what they were doing at Notre Dame is different from what Jimmy Lake was responsible for at Washington. And, Jimmy Lake ultimately became the head coach, but he still split that with PK. So, Terry Joseph coming over, who's respected and was, by all means, a good coach at Texas A&M, been a good coach at Notre Dame. And we're also getting our boy Blake Gideon back to handle the safeties. I'm just curious about that combo. I like the way they're recruiting, but can they develop? That's a question I have, because Texas has struggled in the defensive backfield from just a consistency standpoint for a long time. And where they have to get to, because you look at the way they've recruited, 2018, they signed like the top 3 safeties. Stearns, DeMarvion Overshown, BJ Foster. And, Overshown, we know now he's a linebacker. Caden Stearns is gone to the 5th round draft pick and relatively disappointing his last couple of years. And BJ Foster, we're hoping he can take off this year. So how does that whole group come together? I like the pieces they have. I like Deshaun Jameson. I'm hoping that in the defensive changes, he's able to make more plays on the football. I like what I have in all my safeties, whether it's BJ Foster, whether, move there. So they have guys. We got this guy, Darian Dunn from McNeese State, so nice little transfer there to push the room and push competition. But we've got to see that consistency. The elder guy, Josh Thompson, who's been at Texas forever now. What does that group look like, though? Are they going to make plays? And I think help them. I will say this: what can help them is if they get the pressure that they think they can get with Pete Kwiatkowski and that scheme that he has, especially up front, because I do think defensive line is one of the best groups we have on our team, and I think we have one of the best defensive lines in the conference, in my opinion.
Alfred Collins, he's got to make that next step.
Alfred has to make that next step. Keandre Colburn has to make, all those guys, but they've shown at least ability, right?
Yeah.
Now, if they can get there and make Joseph Osai, who's a consistent first-team All-American, then I think my defensive backs have a chance to look like stars and make plays. But if they're having to sit in coverage for 7 seconds because we can't generate pressure, then, you already know what it's going to look like.
So here's what I'll do to piggyback off of that. I'll give you 2 things. Okay, so I'll give you the lighter of the 2 first. The first one is that as soon as BJ Foster quit and I found that out, I DM'd him and said, hey, there's room for you in Norman if you want to. Second, I was just going to say that I think the thing to give Texas fans hope is just to realize that your rival, your biggest rival in the Big 12, Alex Grinch, did more with less his first 2 years. So that should kind of give you some optimism about what you're doing because you went out and got a really, really good. You got a hell of an upgrade from Todd Orlando. Let's just be honest. And I think that I can't really say his last name, but let's just say that defensive coordinator got guys to come to Washington. Imagine what he's going to be able to do with guys coming to Texas, but also the guys that are already at Texas. He did.
I'm very excited about that.
We know that, and I mean, let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. Washington fields a really good defense, but they don't have the guys that Texas has. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how he comes with a plethora of, I guess you could say talent. I really don't know what's in that DB room, but I'm just saying what I would guess would be talented guys. I would say he could possibly pull an Alex Grinch and do more with less this year. And I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping. I mean, kind of just shooting in the wind right now.
Well, I mean, you make a hire like that, and you also got to follow the money too. Look how much these guys. They took a Jeff Choate, and granted, he was at the FCS level, but there's a guy that was a head coach and is looking to be a head coach at a higher level and realize I can go to Texas and be a linebacker coach and get a lot more visibility and parlay that into another job than just sitting here in the FCS and, you know, I may or may not get seen. Those are big things, right? So when you're looking at to your point about I did think, last year Chris Ash was the defensive coordinator, after the Todd Orlando fiasco. And I did think Chris Ash did straighten out some things because we had some severe tackling issues. We had issues with just, basic things like taking angles, like just, things you would hope to get rectified. But to your point about the NFL guys that he was churning out at Washington, were all those like Budda Baker. I don't know what star recruit Budda Baker was when he got to Washington, but I know he got developed.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins can be a first-round pick, hands down. We all see the talent. We all see how explosive he is, how big the dude is, and the quickness, the basketball player athleticism. What's the plan for development for him? And they have guys, when you look at between Bo Davis and PK, they haven't shown you that they don't develop. And I think Texas just, spending a little bit more resources to make sure that they have premium coaches and developers there, that matters.
Would you all agree, and Seth, I'll let you go, but would you all agree that there's been a development problem in Texas stemming back to the Mac Brown era?
Yes.
Yeah, at least the end of the Mac Brown era for sure. Yeah, and Steven, I just want to clarify something then. So when it comes to developing the talent and the defense at Texas, are you saying that it's all hands on deck?
I am saying it's all hands on deck from a standpoint of they
throw all hands on deck out there.
I know. That's one of my. For those who don't know, that's one of my sayings on the channel, all hands on deck. So Seth is he's clever. I was like, I had to wait. I had to pause a little bit to pick up what you were putting down, brother.
I was just like, what?
But Seth, oh man, you got me with that one, bro. But I mean, just with those guys we have there, right? I mean, Texas, from a development standpoint, I will say this, they've been underrated in terms of some of the guys that don't end up getting picked very high, but then they become randomly super productive NFL players. Like Texas has all of a sudden become in that business, whether it's Poona Ford or Charles Omenihu or, like all these guys that all of a sudden they pop, or Quandre Diggs, who weren't super high picks, but they have to get out of that perception business because that has been hurting them in recruiting. They've got to get people back on the billboard, back in the first round, back in the second round, and showcased. There's no Joseph Osai left here as all everything, first team all everything, and was still only a third round pick. And that's part of that is been perception problems with our schools. So I think PK helps with that. I think Bo Davis helps with that.
Right on.
All right. Let's go ahead and switch to it. Were you about to say something, Seth?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I think we should take a look at the schedule.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Seth, look.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'm over here rubbing my hands like baby over here right now. So
yeah. I'm looking at this schedule right here. Man, me and Seth, we talk about that September 11th game all the time. Arkansas. But let's not go too far, because there is game number 1 with those Raging Cajuns. Do I smell an upset?
I mean, nobody picked up Maryland to beat Texas. We know at the start of the Herman era. So I mean, I guess you can never say never, But yeah, the Raging Cajuns are going to come out fighting. But I got Texas winning that for sure.
I'll go Texas 35-14. I have faith.
So as a Texas fan, this game freaks me out. I'm not going to lie to you guys, just because of, like you said, with the past games. And I understand that was different staff, different coaches, everything. But until you see otherwise, you're going to have that PTSD from previous experiences, right? So I do think we beat Louisiana in the opener, at least as of right now. I am reluctant to, figure score just yet, just because of the, I don't know who my starting quarterback is yet.
Right. I'm not big at scores just yet either.
Just yet,
but it's too early for me.
Oh, look, I already said it, 35-14. I don't think that they come there and sneak up on Texas. Iowa State, as everybody knows how I feel about Iowa State. Yeah. But let's move on to this Arkansas game. See, I think this is probably the more interesting of the non-conference matchups.
No doubt.
This game really intrigues me because it's at Arkansas. I was surprised. Are we sure that this is not a neutral site game and being played at Jerry's World?
No, it is. It is in Fayetteville, in Arkansas, which I affectionately call Vietnam. We have not, and I say because Arkansas fans have this irrational hatred of Texas, which goes back to the Southwestern Conference days.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they still identify Texas as like their number one rival, even though we haven't played we played like one random bowl game with Tyrone Swoops, which sure y'all won, but like it's like we haven't really played them other than that since like Vince Young. So but they like hate us like the way Texas A&M or Texas Tech hates us.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, because I still don't. I get the rivalry, but I don't get the hate from Texas A&M. I mean, watching Texas A&M, and I don't know how big you guys are on Game of Thrones, but honestly, watching Texas A&M and Texas play is like watching the Battle of the Bastards. You're just like, I mean, for what was the point? I mean, I get it, but I don't at the same time. It's just kind of like, okay, because you got one program who's like, okay, we're the pride of Texas, and you got one program that's like, hey, we've won a bunch of national championships, and we were really good. Yeah, before segregation happened, and I'm just like, that doesn't really count in my book. But I'm just like,
so the real quick though, but the Texas A&M is fresh and makes sense because that rivalry ended abruptly. Like that ended with them leaving. It was political. It was messy. It's the Longhorn Network. It's all this stuff about Texas not wanting to share the money and them going to the and saying we're in this bigger, better thing, but they still have these insecurities and keep looking back at us, even though they were the ones that left. And it's messy, right? And so the Texas and we often get into recruiting battles because we're the two largest schools in the state of Texas. Money the way we spend money, so it makes sense. The Arkansas, it's like, bro, we haven't seen y'all like 20.
It's a lot of hate over there. There's a lot of hate over there in Arkansas, and I'm just like, Arkansas, make your rivalry somebody that you know you can possibly beat. I mean, go to OSU, go down to Gundyville and test your luck. Don't come to Texas and Norman with that trash. Nobody cares about you guys. Make Tulsa a rivalry. They're closer.
Well, why don't you know? And this is the same thing I tell Arkansas fans, and I've already started telling A&M fans. Why don't you put that energy towards LSU and Alabama?
Oh, please.
The actual teams. Put that energy over there. You Arkansas. From a standpoint, like they allowed North Texas to come into their house and beat them with one of the most ridiculous punt returns I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know y'all remember that. And it's just like, y'all didn't have that Vietnam energy for North Texas, but I know the moment the Longhorns come out, it's going to be all hell, all hands on deck, Seth, of hate towards them boys from Austin. That's their energy. Like their whole everything. Like I honestly feel as though if they don't make it to a bowl, but they beat Texas, Sam Pittman's had a successful season. But they could go and get blown 58-7 to Alabama, and they'll be like, "Well, it's Bama."
Yeah, no doubt. They would definitely they'll throw a parade if they can just they get that Texas win. They're set. The rest of it's gravy.
6th Street. So we got Rice. We know that's a win. So here's what I'm gonna go. I'm going to say Texas goes 2-1 coming after the Rice game is all said and done. Are we agreeing or are we disagreeing?
Man, I don't know what the line's gonna be when that Arkansas game comes on that week, but I think I'm leaning towards Texas right now for winning that one.
That's a night game.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there might be they might be running with some different juice with Sarkisian. It'll be their first road game, under him, and I think they're gonna get him. I think it's gonna be a great game. I feel like he could even have potential to be one of those kind of classics that they replay in the next summer. Kind of like it could be one of those kind of games. But I feel like that Texas might find something. Maybe Bijan just goes completely off, and they just can't stop him. Just running it for a first down every touch.
Well, Arkansas is running. I mean, I think that as far as Bijan is concerned, I think that 4-2-6 is going to be friendly to him. We'll see whether they run some different schemes or just something different, or load the box and force Casey Thompson and or Hudson Card to sling that rock around and kind of test their luck with that. But let's all remember that Arkansas is having a quarterback competition as well. I don't know if they are a starter, but they have a competition as well. And I'll say this: you have some highly rated dual threat quarterbacks, but I don't know if they're going to be able to translate that to the this college level and become what I think Sam Pittman would like, since he's an offensive line guy. I think he would rather have a quarterback that can sling that rock if he's going to have the big hog mollies up front taking care of him. I think that he would rather see that. So there's still some question marks about Arkansas. I just see a Saturday night game in Fayetteville and full of a full crowd. I just see that could possibly get to them. I mean, you're running out. Both teams are running out, new quarterbacks. So it's going to be interesting to see how that game goes.
I do want to make one last comment, because you just brought up the crowd, and I think that's such a great point, Chris. Because if you think about last year, a lot of the guys, and this goes all football, right? Yeah. A lot of guys who got their first exposure to college football last year, some of them played in either no crowds or half full stadiums. Like they haven't really been in front of that energy like we're seeing now. And I think you're even seeing that. You've seen that with some of these guys in the NBA playoffs, where it's just, and you can either that and play over your head, or you can succumb to it. And the way I look at this Texas game, to me, because if I look at the Louisiana game, they should be able, they're at home, it's a home opener for a new coach. They should be able to channel that in having their own full crowd and be fine. But even against a veteran Louisiana team, Billy Napier, we know the story. This Arkansas game for Texas is the truth serum game. This is the truth serum game because this is the game where you look at and you say, all right, on the road, Texas man for man has more talent than even debatable. And I'm not trying to sound like arrogant Texas fan right now. The reason why we have nerves is because we're going on the road against in a hostile environment against a team that is just fixated on making their whole season about you, right? And then on top of that, we have all these guys who haven't been in that environment before. So if they can respond to that, but my whole point is we're going to get answers to questions in that particular Arkansas game, and I'm excited for that.
So going from the Rice game, I think that you guys this is a gauntlet. I mean, we had a gauntlet last year, but I mean, this is a gauntlet. I mean, look, you got Texas Tech. You got come back home against Texas Tech. Go on the road to TCU. Then you got the Red River Shootout the next week. Then you go on the road against Oklahoma State. Then you have a bye week, and then you come back. Not go on the road, but you're home against Oklahoma State, and then you go on the road after your bye week to Baylor, and then after that, I believe that next week you'll come back and you'll play. If you don't have another bye week, then you'll come back and you'll play at Iowa State. And 1 second, let me make sure. Let me see what date that Iowa State day that Iowa.
It's on November 6th.
November 6th.
Okay, I was just making sure that wasn't a Thursday night game. You know how Iowa State loves to schedule Thursday night games for Texas. That's a hell of a run. That's a hell of a run because I mean, let's just be honest with you. Texas Tech had no business losing that game last year. And how the hell you guys lost to TCU last year? I don't get it. If there's one person that is so predictable in the Big 12, it has to be Gary Patterson. You already know what he's going to run defensively. It's just about getting those matchups that you want and exploiting those. Because we all know that Gary Patterson, every year in and year out, he's going to run at least – he's going to have a solid defensive line. He's going to have somebody that is better than the rest, but not by that much. He's going to have solid corners, and he's going to have – well, his DB room is going to be filled with a bunch of solid corners, and one of them is probably going to be a first-round draft pick or, if not, a second-day guy. So, but I just don't see how they beat you guys last year. So you guys struggled with Texas Tech, which I don't think you guys will have problems at home this year against them. And then TCU, I don't know. But that Oklahoma, even with Oklahoma State coming to Texas and then going on the road to Baylor to play Dave Aranda and then ending that on the road against Iowa State, Steven, you got to admit that's going to be a tough task.
I think it's a tough task, and I say that out of respect for the conference. But let me also say this: there's questions you just mentioned outside of Oklahoma. Oklahoma State has questions. They're losing, Chuba Hubbard, Tylan Wallace. Those are some big-time players that they had. Now, they did get another back at the end of last year who started popping off. But there's a lot on Spencer Sanders to see what he can do, as if he can take the next step. Baylor's going to be going to a new offense with a new quarterback. And we don't know who the quarterback's going to be on their end. And Dave Aranda is still trying to pick up the pieces from, them falling apart COVID-wise and all that stuff, right? Iowa State, we know how loaded they are. Iowa State I would actually throw into the same conversation as OU in terms of we know they're established teams. TCU is kind of the one that's flying under the radar. And if you look at Zach Evans and Quentin Johnston, if they can get Max Duggan there. But here's my question with the Gary Patterson thing, because I like the way, Chris, you just phrased how to attack TCU. And what you just said is why OU has not had problems with it. Because when y'all play TCU, y'all like, it's not that deep. We know what they bring to the table, and we're just going to execute. For whatever reason, when we play TCU, weird things happen, and we just don't execute. Right? I'm talking about like fumbles and just weird stuff.
Yeah.
And so we have to, again, truth serum. Are we going to show that uptick with our coaching staff and our player development, where we just move past those things and just beat those guys because we're a better team and more talented. So same thing with Texas Tech. That's like, you just have to, those things, like when you go back and look at those games, there were timeout issues, there were delay a game out after a kickoff issues, like just weird things that. Whereas, like, you guys look at it, and you're like, hey, we know Trayvon Bowerig's back there. I don't care. We're still going to execute our stuff, and we're going to beat them comfortably. So that's where Texas has to be too.
I agree with that. Seth, I want to get your thoughts on something, okay?
Yeah.
So you got Texas Tech, Texas, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Iowa State. We forgot about one team, Seth. Kansas.
Oh, I know. I already know.
Kansas. Those damn
no,
Jayhawks.
it's
Those damn Jayhawks.
No, I mean, yeah, like we do like to bring up the 2016 game, but that Kansas team I saw last year was probably the worst Kansas team that I've seen in this string of really bad Kansas teams, and they might even be worse this year. You know, they got the whole Les Miles scandal, fallout, whatever you want to call it. That's just throwing that can't make them any better. So I mean, it's like. And yeah, a lot of these recent Kansas Texas games have been close, relatively close in the last few years, but I don't see this one being.
Seth, can I jump in here and say something real quick in regards to Kansas? I'm gonna make 2 quick points. Number one, I really like the Lance Leopold hire from Buffalo. I think he's gonna be a good coach in time.
Yeah.
In time. I like that hire. Point number 2. If they don't beat Kansas by like 5 touchdowns, I don't want to ever hear all gas, no breaks ever again. Isn't that the whole point?
I remember. I'll never forget when you guys lost to Kansas. My uncle called me with about probably at least 5 minutes. He said, "Hey man, you see what's going on over here?" I said, "Uncle, I've been watching it the whole time." I said, "Hey, do you think he's gonna get fired after this game?" He said, "Shoot, they probably called him on the sidelines. You see him on the phone now talking about Charlie Strong," and I was just like, "Man, he done." When that game ended, I said, "Wow." I was like,
"Bro,
God is
bro, y'all have games, and you guys as OU fans, like you said, Chris, you're a spoiled OU fan, so you know this better than I do. Y'all have those games against teams like this where you get every quarterback in, and now that they have like the 4-game freshman rule, that's like the Tanner Mordecai game, right? Like where he can just come in there and get some stats. Yeah. Or if Chandler Morris wants to come in there and get some stats. That needs to be the Charles Wright game for Texas. That needs to be the game where Hudson Card and KC Thompson are both chilling, and let's let Charles, because we just beat these dudes. We put 42 points up in the first half, and it's not even without question. We just Mortal Kombat these guys. But I don't ever want to hear all gas, no breaks again if we're over here sweating bullets against Kansas.
Look,
I'm sorry.
I know exactly how you feel. I tell you what happened. So, excuse me. During the K-State game, when we did that, when they were like, they let them come back and they were scoring and everything. Look, I had a nervous breakdown. I started, somebody's mad whenever they say, "You know what? That's what y'all want to do." All right, I got you. I went out there and pulled out my Xbox 360. I pulled out NCAA 2010 with Michael Crabtree out there. Let's just say things got messy. I remember whenever I saw OU lost, it was still like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the score was 103. I ran it up on them. I even rematched it. I said, "All right, let's go again. Y'all want to do that?" I had to take a cold shower after that game because I felt so bad. I felt filthy, and I didn't even want to look. I lived 5 minutes away from the campus, and I would take the other way. My office is on the other side of campus. I drove the other way around. I drove probably 15, 20 minutes and got stuck in traffic, the traffic that was leaving the stadium. I drove around that just to go to the office. That's just how much I hated that game and OU at that time. But
Hey, Seth. Chris said he went grabbed the sticks and said, "If you guys won't do it, I'll do it myself."
I'll do it for you.
Like Thanos.
I told Seth after that game, I don't even want to talk about it. Don't even talk to me about it. It took me like literally watching the Iowa State game as well. I was just sitting there, just like, oh my God, what's going on out here?
Was the Kansas State game the one also where Spencer Rattler had those braids?
Yes. I love talk about
Those
that. I knew we were gonna lose when I saw that. I was like, oh, we deserve to lose. This is trash.
I can't wait to see if you guys get Deuce Vaughn's head on a spike. That's fun. That brother was dropping people off at all sorts of bus stops when he played you guys.
Look, I don't want to come on your show and bring down you guys have amazing content on your show, but please just after that K-State game, please just let me come on the show just to show you Deuce Vaughn's head. That's all I want to do. I just want to make a cameo and then I'm out. I don't have to say nothing.
Accepted. Done and done.
I just want to come on there and just hold it up and be like, you see this right here? And then just leave, okay?
Hey, but you also need to come on and take accountability if you let the brother pop off again, win or lose. Don't win the game and still let him go for 200, okay?
A little 5'8" man. You know, it's guys like that. Because I told my uncle I told him after that gas man, I'd hit him in his face. My uncle's like, he may be 5'8", but he's still like maybe 2.
I think the brother's 5'4". I think he's like 5'5".
He was like, he may be short.
We're being generous.
Yeah, because he asked me one time. He said, you talk all this noise about Sam Ellinger. I'm not saying I like him either, but that's a big dude, man. He probably hurt you, Chris. And I was like, no. No. But to finish this off, we got West Virginia and then K-State to end the season. They had this K-State game at 11 a.m. They must know something that we don't know. Because for the last game of the season, an 11 a.m. game, that's
the Friday. That's the day after
That's the Friday.
Too, I think.
Yes. Yeah, so that's going to be our Thanksgiving game. Which we always play at like random times. Normally we do play at like 3 or 6, but it has been noted on this side of town the struggles that Tom Herman had with 11 a.m. kickoffs. So again, all gas, no brakes. If we're gonna say all gas, no brakes, that's what it means, right? So you can't make excuses about kickoff times. You can't make excuses about somebody catching you off guard. I'm giving them slack up front, right? Like with the True Sham game against Arkansas and stuff like that. But by this time of the season, you know who your quarterback is, assuming health, right? Assuming relative health. You know who your quarterback is, and you know what the identity of your team is at this point. So games like this is respected as I have for Chris Kleiman, Skylar Thompson, Deuce Vaughn, all those guys over there. That's a game Texas should win. And that's a game, these games on the back end of the schedule, at the end of the day, there's only 2 games on the schedule that Texas will be favored, at least before the season starts. And that's OU and that's at Iowa State. Every other game, Texas is going to be favored.
Yeah.
Some of these games, Texas is going to be favored by 7.5, 8, at least right now. Now, somebody, breaks their arm and, we have a rash of injuries, then that all changes, of course. But as of right now, there's only 2 games on this slate where you're like, okay, Texas is the definitive underdog.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would say, Seth, I just got a new just kind of a new topic off the list, and this will be the last one that we have.
Okay.
And Seth, I'll say you go first, and we'll let Steven just have the party shot. But OU Texas, October 9th, 2021. All right, Cotton Bowl. What do you expect to happen, man? I mean, what do you guys expect to happen?
Honestly, I kind of feel I'm getting shades of which one was it? Was it 2016 where it was just I think it was Shane Buechele was playing. It was just a complete shootout. It was like 45-40,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, that was a Buechele game.
Yeah. I'm getting those kind of vibes. I feel like this is it's gonna live up to its name as far as the shootout goes. I think it's gonna be high scoring, and not like last year where it was 4 overtime and all that. I think it'll be in regulation. It's gonna be just back and forth, which is gonna upset a lot of OU fans because a lot the OU's pretty high on the defense right now. Which I mean I'm pretty high on the defense too. So it's going to look bad on the Alex Grinch's unit, but I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a classic. I hope both teams are undefeated going into it, but we'll see. That hasn't happened in a while, so both teams dropped the ball last year on that. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited as ever. I feel like just going to see a full Cotton Bowl for the first time in 2 years. So,
amen.
Let's get this going.
What's interesting, Seth, is to the point about the just the Cotton Bowl in general. In that game last year, was such an important win for Lincoln Riley because Texas eliminated OU, in my opinion. That would have been your third big loss. That would have been I feel like the whole season swung on that game. A game which you really had a lot of control over, even with Spencer Rattler getting benched. But Sam Ehlinger had to go bam, bam, Sam, right? And that was one thing y'all couldn't stop. And we ended up in 4 overtimes, but it wasn't a true 52-45 game, right? I agree.
Right.
That wasn't a real 52-45 shootout. I do think the potential's there for that. But I'm just excited to see this revamped, not even revamped, but this built up, souped up Oklahoma defense with Benito and Perrion Winfrey and I'm assuming Isaiah. Y'all going with Isaiah for us, and all these Woody Washington, all these guys out here to load up for Texas, and I'm excited to see it because I want to know, can we protect our quarterback against you guys, right? Because whether it was Neville Gallimore or Winfrey blowing up our I can't stand that sight of that.
Jalen Ramsey,
right? Kenneth Murray, right? And it's just letting dudes just get off, right? If we can, we're matching wit for wit, Sark versus Grinch or Lincoln Riley versus PK. I do think that's a curveball that Lincoln Riley really hasn't seen before as a defensive coordinator like PK to match wits with. So I'm just excited that I'm going to go into a game at least before the season starts and feel like we're not at such a disadvantage schematically. And I've been feeling that for over 10 years when it comes to Texas OU. And that's why I always having so much anxiety because I'm some years we may have more physical talent, but schematically I'm at such a disadvantage. And now I feel like at least we were seeing ourselves level up here. You guys are going to have all eyes on 5, rightfully so, and say, Mr. Robinson can't beat us today. We're going to make one of these other receivers beat us. We're going to make this unproven quarterback beat us. And I think that's going to be the great challenge, and I think it's going to be a great matchup.
You just to piggyback off of that, I feel like with OU going into that game, and I don't want to get too far ahead into the season, but going into that game, you kind of go in there with the same, at least the same mental makeup. Maybe maybe not the same scheme, but you go in there with the same mental makeup that you had last year during Bedlam. And that is basically Chuba Hubbard or Bijan Robinson can have 104 yards, but it's going to be on at least 30 carries. Because you look at Chuba Hubbard, and we all know that Bijan Robinson is way better than Chuba Hubbard. And Chuba Hubbard was a great college back, or at least that's what he was considered to be. But when you look at Chuba Hubbard, he struggled against OU tremendously, and that was because they said, you know what, Grinch just basically went out there and told him, hey, I'm not scared of Tylan Wallace, okay? contrary to your belief, I got guys over here who we can keep him contained. But Spencer Sanders, you're gonna have to make some throws. You're gonna have to make some big boy throws. We're not gonna let you guys just run slants and then just run go routes with Tyler the whole time. You're gonna have to prove to us that you can establish that run. We don't think that you're good enough to establish the run. So I think you have to go out there with that same mental makeup and say, Texas, look, we don't believe you guys may believe in Casey Thompson or Hudson Card. We don't. But if they want to be heroes today, let them be that. But Bijan, you're not going to be anything short of, 100-yard back on 30 carries. So I feel like I don't think you'll see them just automatically load the box, but I think you'll definitely see them scheme well for that game and kind of just make Texas try to pitch it. And I mean, let's just be honest. OU, I see OU struggling only if they go out there with that Kansas State type of mentality, where you're playing against a disciplined team and you're saying, okay, we're not disciplined enough to get the 3 and out. So on those 3rd and 10s, and those 3rd and 12s, and those 3rd and 4s, you can't get those stops because you're letting them run basic route trees, and then they're just catching those balls over the middle, slants, back shoulder throws, different things like that. That's where OU usually gets beat, is when they play against a disciplined team who says, you know what, we're going to be patient with our offense. We're going to run where we run, but we're also going to make those not the big time grab, but we're going to make those consistent grabs, and we're going to chip away early on the down. So if Texas can do that, then it'll be a long day for OU, which I still think OU will come out victorious. But I would just like to see OU come out there and say, okay, we hit you guys in the mouth, because 2019 and 2020, OU came out and hit Texas in the mouth both times, but
they did
kept chipping away. So you're sitting there looking at OU and you're saying, okay, hey, guys, you're up on Kansas State, you're up on Texas, you're up on Iowa State by it's 27-7 or it's 24-7. Can we get 2 more touchdowns? Can we get 3 more field goals and kill their momentum and kill their belief? And so that's kind of what I think the game is going to boil down to. I think it's a game within a game for both teams. Go ahead.
It is definitely a game within a game, and I think that's also where you have to, you counter, right, and say, all right, well,
yeah.
And it goes back to what I mentioned with Bijan Robinson in terms of his diet. And what I mean by diet is a combination of carries and pass game, and when you use them as sometimes, right? And I think you have to be smart about that. One of the things that K-State did that I love is they didn't just kill you with Deuce Vaughn, Mr. Head on the Spike, in the run game, but it was the passing game, right? In terms of isolating him against the backer and just saying, all right, we're not going to turn around and hand the ball off and run up between the tackle and right into the teeth of the defense. We're going to create some exotic ways to get him the ball in space and let him do it today. That's going to be one of the keys with Steve Sarkisian, is how he gets what does Bijan's diet look like? Because if they can diversify that, now the game plan is going to be, we can't throw the ball, we're not good at quarterback, we don't have receivers, and we're just going to run the run game. Good luck with that. You know what I mean? Like, that plays right into Grinch's hands. But if the more they can diversify things and still run their offense, because that's something Oklahoma State couldn't do. Because we didn't have trouble with Chuba Hubbard either. We did have trouble with Tylan Wallace a few years ago, but we were able to keep those guys in check. Once you're able to kind of, take those guys out, then it was, to your point, like you said earlier perfectly, he either has to make big throws or big decisions, and he's not the progression quarterback guy, and that's why I'm saying he has questions that I need to see answered. So I think that's a fantastic point. Game within a game.
Yeah, it's literally just a game within a game, and that's why I always say there's nobody that can. And I'm sure that you Texas fans say it as well, but I say, with OU, there's only one team that beats OU, and that's literally OU. If we're just talking Big 12 wise, so when you see those mistakes and those errors and everything, it's just, it happens, and it's a game within a game, and sometimes you don't make those necessary adjustments. But yeah, Seth, you got anything you want to add to that, or?
No, I think y'all both, said that perfectly. The very very succinctly, that it's a game within a game. Texas OU, you can always throw out the records. So it's when the two go at it, but it'll be nice to see a couple zeros in both of those records going into the game. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, hey Seth, go ahead and tell everybody how they can get connected with you.
Yeah, you can find some of my writings and stuff over at Crimson and Cream Machine. It's kind of dead right now with softball being over, but we're still doing the thing over there. Then you can also find me on Twitter at Seth Oliveris. But yeah, Steven, you definitely got to plug your stuff.
Absolutely. So Fanatic Perspective on YouTube. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. I appreciate everybody out there that decides to plug in and check us out. If you're looking to check out Texas, Dallas Cowboys, NBA, also the whole gamut, anybody that ever takes their time to come through our channel, we're appreciative of your time. And on Twitter, Fan Perspective, you can find us on there. If you search Fanatic Perspective, I have it spelled weird because Twitter doesn't allow me a certain amount of characters. But you can find me on Twitter at Fanatic Perspective, as well as on Instagram. So, guys, I really appreciate you letting me come on. And I also appreciate the fact that you guys love Texas so much and decide to put Texas in your podcast name and give us more free attention.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I came up with the name too because when we were shooting around names, it just came to me, and I looked it up. I didn't really see anybody else had it, so. But yeah, we got a special place in our hearts for Texas for sure.
Yeah, free pup.
I wanted to call the show Texas Sucks, but Seth was like, nah, bro, no. One thing I'll say, this will be the last thing I say. I really don't plug or do anything like that. Can we just give Mac Brown just his flowers and his due respect? I mean, seriously, to leave a program like Texas and going to do bigger and better things in North Carolina, I mean, my God, it's just it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm
what bigger and better things has he done at North Carolina, though? Respect to Mac. I love Mac. I'm a Mac. I grew. That's the homie. That's who I grew up with. That's like a parent to me. But I'm just curious, like, what bigger and better things has he done at North Carolina? I wasn't aware they won a national championship over.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been another episode of the Horns Down Podcast. So yeah, we'll let you guys go. Have a great night, everybody.